So powerful are local gangs and crime bosses that they are now trying to muscle in on local elections in a bid to tighten their grip on resources and power in communities on the Cape Flats. Joining me to look at this phenomena is Anthony Dietrich from the SACP, and I'm joined by drug policy specialist from TB and HIV care, Sean Shelley. Sean, I understand you're the one that I have a sound connection with. We're still waiting for Anthony to come up. You've listened to the minister now, and we've spoken about the levels of corruption. One of the things, of course, that the police have been trying to do for years is the so-called war on drugs, and the strategy is not yielding. I mean, many people are saying that the police kind of raid one drug lord only to give the drugs to another drug lord. Should we still be pursuing only a law and order strategy? Should there not be additional measures to look at what is clearly a huge problem, not just from a law and order perspective, but also from a socio-economic and social and health perspective, like the question of addiction?
Yes, definitely we should. In fact, last year, 31 heads of all the UN agencies recommended that the use of drugs by individuals be decriminalized around the world. It's a direct and very clear indication that the war on drugs has failed. And you were very correct in saying that it was essentially a socio-economic situation and a health situation we need to look at. And in particularly from the socio-economic point of view, because the drug trade, as it is at the moment, has a massive value chain in it. So something that's produced for a few rands gets sold for 300 rands per gram. There's a lot of opportunity for corruption in that chain.
Absolutely, and of course these drug lords have a vested interest in keeping this an illicit trade, because it's through that illicitness that they get the value and the leverage that they have. If we, for example, have a totally different approach where drugs are decriminalized, when you deal with socioeconomic issues that drive people to addiction, suddenly the capital that drugs have and the social and economic capital is gone. I mean, you render them useless as an industry, so to speak.
Absolutely correct. And if you consider that, I think a couple of years ago, 48% of all convictions secured by the NPA were for drug-related offences, and most of those were for tiny amounts of drugs, how many resources could you free up to concentrate on pursuing the more serious crimes?
Absolutely. Let me just check if Anthony is with us. Anthony Dietrich from the South African Communist Party. Anthony, you lost a key person in the Mfuleni area recently as a result of a killing. We still don't know what happened. Both he and his daughter was gunned down. You work in these townships. We now understand that these street gangs and people involved in the organized crime is not just trying to run protection rackets, they're also trying to coerce communities into who needs to be elected. What is the experience of the South African Communist Party in places like Mfuleni with these criminal, gangs?
Good afternoon, Karima, and thank you very much for having us. Much appreciated. Most of the reports that we are receiving from our structures, the lower structures, particularly within the township and most importantly within the informal settings, we have a network of criminals that are extorting significant enterprises within those communities, from entering into the tender processes at the local government level for services that councillors are meant to render and coerce people in those settings to pay protection money. This is across all the spaza shops. It is now entering into the delivery services in the community. It is impacting on the way that the communities are currently experiencing the level of extortion that is currently impacting on the ability of people to make a living within those communities.
Just a final question before we take a break, because we obviously have to pay the bills. You had your key organizer in Mfuleni killed randomly. The SACP issued a statement saying that it was an assassination. Why do you believe it was an assassination?
Yeah, it is part of this tendency and phenomena that is creeping in those communities. Comrade Sia has been a very dedicated and committed servant within that community, and has run into serious difficulties with some of the structures in that community, and particularly with some of the taxi operating syndicates within that area. But it's also got to do with activities that are happening within his homestead in the Eastern Cape. And some of those kind of activities has been following him into the Western Cape. So the investigation around that as a two-prong, we have spoken to the police around that, and we have given our insights as to what precisely happened around the circumstances of Comrade Sia's death. And therefore, we are still awaiting on any possibility of any breakthroughs that has happened. But we are clearly certain about the fact that these are connected and linked to the operations that are currently being affected within those communities.
It's quite frightening what is happening. You see street gangs moving in on communities, extorting, as Anthony Dietrich was talking about it there, from taxi operators to spaza shops, and of course the influence is growing. We have a municipal election coming up next year, and who knows where this is going to stop. We're going to take a short break. Up next, we're going to focus on what decriminalizing drugs will mean for criminal syndicates who, of course, stand to lose hundreds of millions of rands. Don't go anywhere.